time and place of this hearing was published in the Advocate on January 7th of 2021. It's also posted in the town clerk's office. Persons wishing to be heard will be called in the following order. So first thing we have is our minutes for approval from December 22nd. I made one suggested change to Joanne, and she asked that I let you know about it. She doesn't have access to, she's working from home today. My only change was a small one, and it was on page 3. What is it? Wait a minute. That's interesting. These look a little different. But anyway, my suggestions were to should the wording in there new animal eggs and new animals. My recommendation was eggs and adult specimens of obligate vernal pool species. And this was in relation to vernal pools. So that was for the
Farm?
Morris's Lane property, I believe. Yeah. So that was it. That was my only change. It was just a change to wording regarding the process of, how a vernal pool is identified. So that was all. I don't know if anybody else had any changes to suggest to Joanne. If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes with the suggested amendment.
I'll make a motion.
That be approved with the amended.
Okay. Heidi beat you to it, Everett. So Heidi makes the motion. Everett, would you like to second that motion?
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion from the commission? So I'll do roll call just to make this easier. Heidi, how do you vote?
Yes.
Everett?
Yes.
Richard? Ryan?
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you all. Next on the agenda, meeting mail. Agent Kelly, any meeting mail?
We got a letter from FEMA about the latest flood hazard determinations, but aside from that, nothing interesting.
Okay. That's not, that's certainly not going to have any impact on tonight's meeting.
No, not at all.
All righty. On to old business then. We have an NOI BWC Mill Pond LLC off Gammons Road. Let me just continue with this. NOI BWC Mill Pond LLC off Gammons Road and Mattapoisett Road, SE 001-0554. Notice of intent was filed by BWC Mill Pond LLC for property located off Gammons Road and Mattapoisett Road, map 10 lots 1.2, 1A, 0.3A and 3, map 9 lot 32. The applicant proposes to construct a solar power generating facility on the subject parcels. Portions of the work, including a proposed access drive, stormwater management facilities, and tree clearing areas are located within the 100-foot buffer zone, the bordering vegetated wetlands located on the subject parcels. The applicant is represented by Richard Riccio, Field Engineering Company. Plan name is Proposed Solar Array BWC Mill Pond LLC. And I'm guessing this is here because we didn't have a file number yet, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So we have a file number now. We discussed this at the last meeting. Merrily, does anything else need to be discussed about this?
I'd feel better if we went over stormwater again.
You have a specific
Okay,
question?
I can do that.
Is that Mr. Riccio? Would that be you?
Yep, that's me.
Okay.
Rich
Floor is
Riccio
yours.
from Field Engineering on behalf of BWC, Mill Pond. I will share my screen here, just so we can refresh everybody's memory with the plan. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. So the site itself, as we discussed previously, is a wooded site, which will be converted to the solar array with a meadow type vegetation beneath the panels. In constructed conditions, we are proposing 2 stormwater areas to attenuate the rates of runoff from pre-existing conditions, since there would be an increased rate in runoff to the wetlands from going from a tree ground cover to the meadow ground cover. Topography wise, there's a ridge more or less that runs through the center of the array. On the left-hand side of the array, or the westerly side, the runoff would flow towards this vast wetland system here. And on the easterly side, the runoff flows to this wetland system that runs parallel with the town line, as shown here on the plan. In order to attenuate the runoff going to the west, we're proposing a stormwater management area that's shown in blue on this southwesterly side of the array. Basically, that'll intercept a good portion of the runoff that's coming off the array, hold it back, and release it at a controlled rate towards the wetlands, to ensure we're not increasing the amount of water that gets into this wetland system. Similarly, on the easterly side, we're proposing this stormwater management area here, which will intercept a good amount of the water coming from the easterly portion of the array, and once again discharge at a controlled rate towards these wetlands. We're proposing a crushed stone edge drain along the downhill side of the gravel access road, which will convey the water from the road as well as the central portion of the array towards this detention area. So that's a basic summary of the stormwater management facilities being proposed. The calculations submitted show that we do reduce the rates of runoff to the wetlands on both sides of the site.
Excellent, thank you. That helps.
Anybody else with questions for Mr. Riccio or anybody else from this project?
No.
Mr. Riccio, do we have a file number now? Or Mary Lee, do we have a file number now?
Yes, I believe we do.
Yeah, and there was, the DEP had no comments.
Okay. Mary Lee, any further questions about drainage? Are you satisfied with that response?
No, no, I'm satisfied, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Riccio. Any neighbors or abutters with questions about this project? Mr. Riccio, if you could stop the screen share so I could see everybody, that'd be great.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Thanks. Amy Rose Baptista, the floor is yours if you would unmute yourself, and yep, we see your name, so.
Thank you. Hi, I'm a resident of Mattapoisett. I received the letter that this was abutting our property. I'm just concerned because this area, according to this letter, is deemed conservation land. At what were the requirements for it to be deemed conservation land? And then how is that removed so that it's no longer deemed that? And is the drainage, is that sufficient enough to maintain its conservation labeling?
So I'm curious, was it deemed conservation land or wetland?
Well, the letter states that you're seeking to remove and dredge areas subject to protection under the Wetlands Protection Act. So I'm just wondering, at what point was it declared protected? And then what is the reason that now it can be removed?
Okay, so just to clarify, and then on behalf of the project, I'll let Mr. Riccio respond. So what that is telling you is that the work is planned in a, some of the work is planned in a, either wetland or a buffer zone, so the wetland is protected. That's slightly different than being designated as conservation property, which would be, most of that's happening in Acushnet. That's not conservation property in Acushnet. The town of Acushnet doesn't own it. The Conservation Commission doesn't. The Fairhaven Acushnet Land Preservation Trust doesn't. And I'm guessing whatever access there is from Mattapoisett would not be owned by anyone that would hold the conservation restriction to that. So there is a distinction between actual conservation property, which cannot be, once the development rights are given to another entity like a town or a land trust, building can't happen there, versus something that is wetland that falls under the jurisdiction of a town or DEP. So
Whoa, I got you guys.
Evelyn, I need you to go on mute as we sort out this question here. Thank you.
You
So-
got it.
So Amy, I'm sorry, Ms. Rose Baptiste.
That's okay. Amy's fine.
Did that answer your question? Partially,
So I
because
guess-
I also need the project proponent to answer it too.
Okay, so I guess I'm wondering too, so is the board's job then to ensure that this land continue to be protected, even though it is not wetlands owned by the community itself? I guess I'm concerned because we do have quite a bit of land behind us that we purchased in order to protect and preserve. And I'm just concerned as to how the integrity of that will be affected by the project itself. And that's my main concern for being here tonight.
Sure thing. Mr. Riccio, I'm going to turn that question over to you as the project lead engineer.
Thank you.
Mhm. Yes, basically the language you were talking about from the letter there, that's the standard language in the abutter notice with regards to remove, fill, dredge, or alter. The area subject to protection is the flagged wetland system that's shown on the plan. I'm going to bring my
And
plan
in this
back up.
case,
So
it might be good to do it. In this case, I'm going to ask you to screen share again so we can see it all.
yes,
Thank you.
definitely. So Ms. Baptiste's property is down where my mouse is here on the southeast side of the site. This area here with the blue flagging and some blue hatching area is wetland that the westerly side of this wetland was delineated to establish the areas of jurisdiction on the project site, which would be the areas subject to protection as listed in that letter by the Conservation Commission. The easterly side, which is the wetlands on the Mattapoisett side, that's just an approximate line that was taken from the GIS as we were, we're not doing any work obviously on that side of the line. The project itself is about probably close to 250 feet from the edge of the wetland that was actually flagged on the easterly side of the site. That area would all remain woods and will all remain wooded following construction of the project. The stormwater, like I had discussed, that comes from this site is actually going to be, for the most part, going to be intercepted and discharged into this detention basin here. And we're actually reducing the amount of water that's getting into this wetland system Not substantially, but enough, we're not increasing the amount of water where it would have an impact, a potential flooding impact per se. The fence around the wetland is going to be raised off the ground, so it'll allow like 6 inches to allow small wildlife to go through there. I don't really see, I wouldn't anticipate any impacts to the wetlands behind your house or on the property there.
Ms. Baptista, does that answer your question to your satisfaction?
It does. I do have one other question that was kind of raised as you were describing this, and I appreciate you going into that detail. The proposal itself, or the project itself, is there environmental implications as to, when you're saying runoff, are you describing runoff because of the alterations made to the land, or is there like a substantial runoff from like cooling agents and things like that that would be interfering with the pond itself?
No, sorry.
No, that's fine.
It's
Go ahead.
strictly stormwater runoff that would be coming from rainwater that would hit the ground. These panels are raised 5 to 7 feet off the ground, and the land beneath them is all totally available to accept the water that comes off of the panels. They're glass solar panels. There's no hazardous materials or anything associated with any of the equipment on site. So it's a pretty clean use of the property. And yeah, it's strictly rainwater runoff that we're talking about. There's no requirements to clean the panels or anything. They're pretty much self-cleaning through the rain process when it rains on them.
And if you don't mind, I just have one more clarifying question too. Well, actually,
No problem.
Is there any type of audio or transmission, sound transmission that will be generated through and lighting of that area?
No lighting. The site will be at night. You won't even know even during the day, you won't know there's no lighting associated with the project. There is a small audible hum that would come from these pads where my cursor is now, but that only extends probably about 150 feet away from it. And that's only during the day when it's generating power. So it wouldn't go, it wouldn't come anywhere near impacting any of the neighboring properties.
And then, I'm sorry, my final question, future years down the road, if this property is no longer substantial, who's responsible? Are you responsible for the removal of that, or will it stay there? Has anyone looked at?
Yes, no, there's the owner of the project would be responsible to what they call decommission the site and take the panels down, take the foundation posts away, also the equipment pads and the fencing. And we're also required to post a bond or a surety with the town through the planning board process, that in case some reason the town has to end up cleaning this site up or decommissioning the site, there's money is available to take care of that. Typically, these arrays are they're used, they run for about 25 years. The lease is, I believe, 20 years with 2 5-year extensions on it. So it's something that's going to be there for a while. But if for some reason it does need to get decommissioned and taken out, either the owner itself would do it, or there's monies in place for someone to come in and take care of it.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate you clarifying that.
Not a problem. And if you have any other questions, I know you've called our office before, so feel free to reach out. That's not a problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Reggio. Anybody else regarding this project on the Acushnet Mattapoisett line?
No.
I'm going to scroll through here. I don't see any other hands.
I have a
raising.
question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Ms. Malloy.
When they when they disassemble these panels and everything else that goes with it, whether it relates to what we're talking about now or any of these panels, where do they bring them? Where's the disposal site? Is there like a big place that just takes these panels? I hope I'm describing this correctly.
I do. Mr. Riccio, would you like to perhaps answer that question?
Actually, I think Josh
Or Mr.
from Blue
Smith,
Wave
I
is
don't
on
know.
as well. He might be able to answer that better.
Okay.
Larry, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Commission, Chairman. Yeah, that's a great question. So, so typically the panels themselves, the modules, will be directed to an appropriate recycling site that's available at that time. You know, a lot, solar modules have materials in them that are still valuable at the end of their life, and there's a value to reclaiming them. So. And in the future, it's anticipated that just with, as everyone's well aware, just with the amount of solar that's, being developed nowadays, that there's going to be even, the presence of recycling facilities will be even greater in the future. So again, the modules themselves, the ones you see sitting, actually collecting the sun, those would be directed to a recycling facility. In terms of the other material on site, those would be disposed or again, recycled as needed. The concrete and the pads could be recycled and typically would be recycled likely locally. And then same thing with the steel for the racking that's used to actually hold the modules. That's again, still has value and would likely be recycled as well. So there's a good deal of value in most of the materials and equipment that remains on site at the end of the project's life. And as much of it as would be recycled as possible. Anything that, there wouldn't be any hazardous materials directed to a landfill in a non-controlled manner. So,
Okay. Also, could I ask, where's the closest recycling site? Do you have a guesstimate of how many there are in Massachusetts? Also,
yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that's I don't have that information offhand, but it's certainly something we could send to you and where the closest recycling site is. Sometimes they're recycling, at least for them, depends on which material you're talking about. Again, like modules, it might differ, it might be sent farther away. Concrete or other materials could certainly be closer. So,
well, I was just going like with the basic, just even starting with the panels,
right.
because I just wonder about the future of it. So if everything becomes obsolete with all the ones that we have built now, plus what's coming in the future. So if you're looking at 20 years with this, 5 years extension, that's 30 max. And we've already have them out there, which has probably been the last 10 years, maybe. That's just a guesstimate. I just wonder what the future of those will be for our kids, where this space or place will be. And I'm not saying anything negative about the project, mind you. I just need to focus on that. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no,
The
completely
recycling
understand.
part, it's like, I know where, when I recycle my stuff right here in my own home and then I put it out there, I know where it's going or what
Right.
pots go in what bin and where. So I
Right.
just think we should really take some responsibility for this and know this before we give our conservation blessings. Thank you.
Could I just add, with regards to the panels themselves, they're made out of glass. What is it? Silica sand in there. Then the metal framing of it. Glass. I mean, the glass would get recycled where a lot of big quantities of glass get recycled now. The concrete, we do know is right in New England Recycling would take all the clean concrete. Probably would even take the steel from the site, although there's many steel people that would recycle the steel from the racking and such. So I know
That's lots of money.
I understand the concern, but I think there's readily available recycling facilities that would be taking the majority of the materials for recycle purposes.
Okay, just for the heck of it though, is it possible, like that gentleman said, that we could get some information forwarded to us? So we could have it or glance at it, read it, but at least be responsible and knowable when someone asks us, we have
Oh,
answers.
definitely.
Yeah.
I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Evelyn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else with questions, comments, concerns about this project?
No.
Hearing none, I will entertain a motion for a positive order of conditions for BWC Mill Pond LLC.
So moved.
It's a motion from Everett. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Richard. Any further discussion on this?
No.
We'll take a roll call vote. Starting, I'm just going the way you appear on my screen. Richard,
Yes.
Heidi,
Yes.
Everett,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yep.
Evelyn.
Yes,
That's unanimous. Thank you all. For any of you that are signed on to this, if you'd like to sign off, we won't be insulted if you leave us. Thank you for your.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commission members.
I may go slightly out of order. Mr. DeVignan and Mr. Smith, I might, and anybody else from Borrego, I might need to ask your indulgence to change the order of things for a moment. Mr. DeVignan, are you still on the call? I know you
Yes,
had
Mr.
been-
Chairman, I'm here. I would appreciate it if I could go.
Yeah, that would be good. So Borrego Solar, if it's okay with you, we're going to go out of order just because Mr. DeVignan has to attend another meeting.
Yep.
And we'll
Fine, we can hang on. This is Brandon.
what's that?
I said, hi, this is Brandon Smith with Borrego. That's fine. We can hang
Thank
on.
you, Mr. Smith. I appreciate that. Mr. DeVignan, the floor is yours. But actually, no, let me read what we have on the agenda for the minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Apply for Taylor Martin, 15 Catherine Street. One is ANR lot number 23, file number SE 001-0556. The other is ANR lot number 24, SE 001-0557. A notice of intent was filed by Taylor Martin for property located at 15 Catherine Street, map 4, lot 9, northerly and southerly portion. The second one is the central portion, that's 0557. The applicant proposes to demolish the existing cottage to construct a new dwelling, well, septic system, and the electric / telephone / cable wires to construct a driveway and to fill and grade within the 100-foot buffer zone rebordering vegetated wetland. The applicant is represented by David M. DeVignan of Schneider DeVignan Leone Incorporated. Plan name is Sewage Disposal System Repair Plan dated for December 11th of 2020. The 001-0557 is dated December 14th of 2020. Mr. DeVignan, the floor is yours.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commission members, good evening. On looking at the agenda, you have lot 23 and then lot 24. I'm going to start with lot 24, be easier to work from there. And I noticed that there's no file number on the agenda, but we do have a file number. One has been issued. It's one number after the first one, so it's 557.
I have it on the copy of the agenda that I have.
Okay, excellent. Would I be able to screen share?
Commissioner Cable, can you give Mr. DeVignan sharing privileges? Try it now. I can't give that to you, but they can.
I think it's working.
Here we go.
So I'm going to start with a plan to give a little history on the site and sort of a little clarity on the two lots. I should start by saying that I'm Dave DeVignan, representing the applicant, owner of the property. I'm sorry, from Schneider DeVignan Leone. This property has one address, 15 Catherine Street, but it's actually a unique property in that it has two dwellings on it. The dwellings predate subdivision control law and predates the zoning bylaws. And so it's a legally non-conforming lot with two structures on it. Under state law, you can divide a lot in such a circumstance by attempting to do a division as equal as you possibly could. And so what I'm showing you is an A&R plan which has been endorsed. This one doesn't show it, but this plan has been endorsed by the planning board, which divides the lot. The two cottages, you can see lot 24 being the central lot, lot 23 being the house to the cottage to the south or to the right on the page. And that will be sort of a U-shaped lot wrapping around 24. The reason for that we'll see soon enough as I show the plans. So this is a property that's actually land court. So once the planning board endorses the plan, it has to go to land court and they'll process the final lot division through land court. They've already reviewed it. They gave us their comments before we went to planning board. They gave us the authorization to proceed with planning board. So the concept here is we have two cottages. They're serviced by cesspools. They're serviced by a private water supply well. All of that will be demolished. The dwellings will be demolished. The cesspools will be replaced with Title V septic systems. New wells will be installed to maintain proper setbacks to the septic systems. So I'm going to X out of this and see. I'm going to go to septic for lot 24. Okay, just bear with me. I think I actually X myself out. Okay, I'm back to where I was. Screen share. Okay. So this is the central lot. It's lot 24. You can see crosshatch where I'm putting the cursor, the existing cottage. The proposed house will be slightly behind that, set off the road. We're proposing on this one, it's a 2-bedroom home. The size of the home is governed by the size of a lot. You can only have 1 bedroom per quarter acre of land when you have a well and a septic on the same lot. The septic system is located up in the northeast corner of the lot, closest to Catherine Street. That's where the site, we obtained all the perk tests, the soil evaluations. The leaching field, as you can see, will be set back off of the wetland line. It's actually approximately 78 feet from the wetlands. Acushnet Board of Health regs require a 75-foot setback. That area, there'll be a mounded system. It'll actually be installed 5 feet above a seasonal high groundwater because we encountered fast-moving sands in that area. So there's an extra foot put into place there. And also another key component of the septic system is there'll be a septic tank and there will be a denitrification unit within the septic tank for purification of the water. I'm showing you where the tank is right behind the building. From there, there'll be a pump chamber and everything will be pumped up to the leaching field. The house itself, very basic standard rectangle, walkout basement, walkout in the back, not a basement, but a crawl space. Due to the seasonal high groundwater, there'll only be a shallow crawl space below the dwelling. And there won't be a full basement. There's a 1-car garage on the north side of the dwelling. There's filling in the front of the house just to blend it into the street grade with Catherine Street, excuse me. And the back grade will more or less mirror what's there with some slight grading changes, but very modest. So we're minimizing the fill in the backyard. The well will be located in that that leg little bump out that you see. And we need the well to be in that location so that we can gain a 100-foot setback from the leaching field. Um, So erosion control is shown right at the property line along the back of the lot. It's a pretty straightforward redevelopment of this site. The wetland line was flagged by Mark Garrett. I'm not sure if you know who he is, but he currently is the environmental coordinator for the Town of Dartmouth Conservation Commission. He flagged it a few years back for us when we first started this project. So this is lot 24. There's two sheets to the set. The second sheet is all design details. It shows you the septic tank, pump chamber, the leaching field, profile view, top views, cross sections, etc. So if there, I'd be happy to entertain questions on this one first before we move on to the next one. I don't know
Yes,
how you
Mr.
want
Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I have a question for Mr. Davinian.
Mr. Pimental, please.
Yeah, Mr. Davinian, how far into the buffer zone does lot 24 go into? If it does at all, I can't tell from the map here.
I would say that probably about 80% of the lot is in the buffer zone.
Okay,
The 100-foot setback from that wetland line is probably about it's a parallel line about 25, 30 feet off of the road.
okay, I see that. Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Davignon, in terms of, so your next meeting tonight was with that with Zoning Board of Appeals? Do they have any say on this?
No, you are correct in the board I'm attending, but it's for a different matter. This project will not require Board of Appeals because the reason the house is placed off of the road more than what it is now is because we're meeting zoning setbacks. We're meeting the street setback 25 feet, the side setback of 15 feet, and the rear setback, I believe, which is 20 feet off the rear. So we're meeting the zoning setbacks for both lots, and that's sort of how the lot lines were contoured between the location of where we had to place the wells and trying to fit a house on the site, meeting all zoning setbacks it's sort of how we created the lots.
Okay, and going back to the earlier point you made, because this is something new for me. So you mentioned this being a legally non-conforming lot. Can you talk a little bit more about that? And I guess it goes back to the fact that this was created well before this town had any kind of zoning laws. Is that correct?
That's correct. The existence of the homes predates subdivision control law. The homes, and if I went back to the A&R plan, it would tell us. I have a copy of that.
Question about this lot and the other lot also. Get a chance.
Both dwellings predate 1955, and under Mass General Law, you're able to divide a lot that predates Mass General Law, Chapter 41, Section 81L, which is the subdivision control law.
Okay. And the other important thing here is you're going to have two septic systems, and Ms. Barnes, I see your comment. I will call on you next. So I know for 24 and for 23, you have two septic systems fairly close to each other. Has this been through the Board of Health yet?
Yes, it has.
And they've given their approval?
I have letters in the file that the approval was issued. Yes.
Okay, that's good to know. Okay, we have Alexandra Barnes who would like to ask a question. So if you unmute, you may ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
I wasn't sure. Okay, so I live at 4 Catherine Street, and we received a letter in the mail that this was going to be abutting our property. I just have a couple questions about the properties there. As you mentioned, it's a special lot where it's like not quite big enough for two dwellings. Or wasn't.
Could I have you turn up your microphone a little bit, please?
I don't know. Hang on.
try that.
Is that, can you hear me?
A little bit. You might have to shout.
If I get closer, is it better?
I can hear you.
Okay, Dave, go ahead then.
Okay. Now I got sidetracked. So the values of the house, do you have, well, first of all, the lot, you mentioned that it was a special lot in that it's not quite big enough for two dwellings. Is that what you said? Or is it like you're splitting the lot into two?
Well, it's a legally non-conforming lot in that it has two dwellings on one lot.
Okay.
The proposal is to subdivide those as we can. We actually have already divided them through the planning board process. The septic system on this particular lot is restricted to only a two-bedroom dwelling because of the size of the lot. We would need to get it up to 30,000 square feet in order to have a three-bedroom home. So this lot, 24, will be restricted to two bedrooms because of the size and because there's a well and a septic on the lot. That is state sanitary code.
And will these houses be two floors, two stories, or just?
Yes.
Okay. And the other thing is, do you have an estimate on what the value of these homes will be when they're complete?
I have no idea. They haven't applied for a building permit. Once the houses are built, then the assessors will assess what the value of the homes are.
Mrs. Barnes, for what it's worth, the other septic will be going at that inside corner of Peter and Catherine Street. It will not be across the street from your house.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, I was mostly concerned that it wasn't going to be directly across the street from us, but I know the property doesn't really go down that far. But yeah, I was just concerned about a couple things there.
Okay. Do you have any other questions for the commission then, Ms. Barnes?
I think that's it for now.
Thank you. I'll scroll through anybody else. If you do have a question, I can't see everybody. If you'd like to, I see someone named Chad, please, sir. Floor is yours.
Hello, I'm Chad Pyers. I'm from 17 David Street. I'm across the street, basically Hebert Road. I'm familiar with the process and the non-conforming lots. I'm just wondering, what is the grade from the street going to be at the front of the house? Is it going to shed water towards the street, or is all the grade going to run back towards the wetland? Living here for over 40 years, I could say it will be helpful if the grade runs back towards the natural wetland, the way the water sheds now.
Leave your question. It's a good one.
Hi, Chad. How you doing?
Great, Dave. How you been?
Good. Thanks.
Fantastic.
Well, we are showing about a 2.5 foot rise in front of the foundation, and then a very gradual grade to blend in with natural grade about 20 feet from the road. We're not proposing to fill right up to the road or near it. I understand your concern. Everything else sheds away from the property towards the rear, along the side of the house and the rear, will all head in the opposite direction. We could certainly implement some sort of swale maybe between the two homes to make sure we divert water, maybe a stone drain of some sort, subsurface to capture water and send it along the property line to the rear. I think that can be done.
Yeah, whatever you can do that you think is reasonable to do that would help. I know you're familiar with the neighborhood, so
yeah.
You're probably aware that the water is going to go straight down the street and it's already going towards the wetland. So whatever we can do to do that, as much as it does now, would be appreciated. That I tried to do on my lot, and I just know there's both negative and positive feedback to what I've done. So I'm just trying to help the new person in their project get it as accepted.
Okay. I would like to put in, on the plan down the property line, a subsurface drain, something that surfaces at, you can see from the road, and then the pipe would discharge along the property line to the rear, rather than swale it between the dwellings, because then it would look really awkward I anticipate both dwellings to blend in side by side, between their yards, but I think we can certainly do that. Yep.
Okay,
Thank you.
and that'll be reflected in the as-built for this, correct, Dave?
Yes, you can condition the project as such, and I'll even, submit a revised sketch of some sort to provide for your files. And, it'll
Be
clearly
helpful.
show what needs to be done in part of the record.
Right, okay. Mr. Pires, any other questions or comments? And thank you for that question.
No, that's it. Thanks.
Okay. Let me scroll through anybody else. If you do have a question, is that you, Billy?
Dave, can you explain a little bit about the denitrification?
Sure. We're proposing to put a FAST system in. FAST is short for fixed activated sludge treatment. It's in layman's terms, it's a mini treatment unit. There are multiple types on the market. They've been on the market for well over 20 years. Some people, the first one that came on the market was a BioClear. They moved into the commercial entity, so they don't do small residential, but there's a lot of them out there. Septic Tech, Singulaire. We've used a variety of different ones, depending on the situation. The FAST system actually is unique in that it fits right into the precast concrete septic tanks that you get nowadays. So this is your generic 1,500 gallon concrete septic tank, but they'll make it, the precast concrete companies around here will make it so that the FAST unit can slip right in. There's an electrical component to it. There's an air blower that is situated anywhere within 50 feet of the house. We're showing it, behind the garage, and that actually will blow air into the unit inside the tank. It creates an atmosphere for biological processes to take place where they eat. There's bugs involved, and they basically eat the sewage and sludge, and they break down everything, so that by the time it leaves this unit inside of the first half of the septic tank, or the second half of the septic tank, and it goes into the pump chamber, you're dealing with a treated effluent. It's very clean. So this will give longevity to the system, probably double the length of this, the life of this system. It's something you see a lot down the Cape by the water's edge, and on small lots in particular where you have situations like this.
Thank you. That helps.
Anybody from the commission with questions for Mr. DeVignon?
No.
Marilee, any other questions from you?
No, I don't think so.
Do we have any other abutters or others with questions for Dave? Most cameras are off, so if you do, I'll need you to type your name into the chat box to let me know. All righty. So I will entertain a motion to issue a positive order of conditions, especially, well, let me get my comment out of the way first. So knowing that we have approval from the Board of Health and Planning Board, and you're back and forth between Planning Board and Land Court, and that seems to be moving along without any problems or legal challenges, I will entertain a motion to issue a positive order of conditions. And I'll put it on this one, even though it pertains to both, for A&R lot number 24 for 15 Catherine Street, that there be a subsurface drain to take runoff away from the front of the properties and away from Catherine Street towards the back lot line. And is that phrased properly, Dave, for your engineering purposes?
Did you mention along the property line?
Yeah, but it's the back property line, correct?
Well, it'd be for this lot, it'd be along the southerly property line.
Okay.
Carrying water from the east to the west to the rear of the property, something of that nature, I guess, would cover it.
Okay. All right, so entertain a motion to issue positive order of conditions for A&R lot number 24 at 15 Catherine Street with the one condition that there be subsurface runoff created to take the runoff from east to west towards the southerly portion of the property. Do we have a motion for that positive order of conditions? That's from Ryan. Do we have a second?
Second.
I saw Heidi's hand go up first, so that's a second from Heidi. Any further discussion on this? So going in order of how you appear on my screen. Rick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Heidi,
Yes.
Everett,
Yes.
thank you. Evel,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yep.
that's unanimous. Thank you. And Mr. Devaney, you want to take care of lot 23 then?
Okay. Let me see if I can find it.
SE 001-0556 for the record.
Okay. So this is lot 23. This one's a little more unconventional than the other. So this one, the house is located to the south of the existing home, slightly. And this one has a 2-car garage, single family home, 3 bedrooms in size. You can see the driveway coming off of Catherine. It will be approximately 25 feet before it gets to the last driveway of 4 Catherine Street. Same configuration. We're filling the front about 2.5 feet. So we'll put the same condition on this one, that a drain be placed along the property boundary. Just can cover the basis to make both projects. And I'll supply a sketch for your office for that too. So we're filling the front about 2.5 feet, grading it down to the street. The rear, there's less than a foot of fill, and that's just to cover the septic tank right here and the pump chamber. This one, we have a leaching field way to the north side of the property. This area over here, it was excavated and mined for gravel, and that's why it's all carved out like that. That's where we found the good soil. So we're basically building the leaching field into the hill, building the hill out and wrapping it around the leaching field. In order to get there, we're going to have to run a 2-inch force main pipe from the pump chamber here, which will be along the back of lot 24's property line and up. We show erosion control along the entire length of the wetlands, primarily for this work more than the other work on the other site. The one thing I didn't mention on the last project, but I think it's a key component here, is due to the proximity of the wetlands, we are proposing a split rail fence as a permanent barrier right along the back of lot 24 upon completion of the project, which we're showing is a continuation all the way along to the south, so that there's a permanent marker along that activity, so that in the future any homeowners know not to continue their backyard, if you will, towards the wetlands. I don't think they'd have much success anyway, because it does get pretty wet when you get into the wetlands. So this will be a 3-bedroom home. There is not a denitrification system on this one because the lot size is much larger. This one has a unique pump chamber in that it's actually going to be a sewer manhole that we put in, so that we can get the force main to drain back from the leaching field all the way back to the pump chamber. We also have to have backup storage in the sewer manhole and the pump chamber itself in case of loss of power. So we have that's a different kind of component that's kind of detailed on sheet number 2, as you can see here through the profile view. But still very similar to the last project, but with the exception of the leaching field not being near the house, it's on the other side of lot 24. We're not proposing any activity to the very south of the site. You can see that sort of the limits of the work. It's about 20 feet south of the garage in this location. Kind of lines up with the north side of the driveway of 4 Catherine. That area, as far as we're concerned, would remain wooded. We're not showing anything cleared out in that vicinity. Both projects, we do have a file number, a DP file number. Both projects been approved by the Board of Health. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does this one have a basement?
No, it's crawl space, same exact design as the other house. We wouldn't want to put the slab any more below grade than what exists. The slabs will be more or less set at grade or slightly above grade under the crawl space. And essentially it's a 4-foot crawl space, so they can maybe store something underneath it, have some utilities underneath, but nothing you could use beyond storage and utilities.
Agent Kelly, other questions? Anybody from the commission? Okay, sorry, Marilee.
I was just wondering if we have a picture that shows the two septic systems right next to each other. How close are they? The two leaching fields.
They'll be about 65 feet apart.
Oh, that's more than it looks like.
What you have is, like this one, you have the primary system is the shaded boxes that you see. That's a chamber type system tucked up 10 feet from both street lines. That's the minimum setback from a property line. The next box, which is really just a rectangle, that's the reserve area. So that actually buffers the active primary leaching field from the property line at this location. And then the next leaching field is another 10 feet to the south. So there's actually a 65-foot separation between the two.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with Marilee. It looks a little closer, but that's good to know. Okay. Anybody from the commission with questions for Mr. DeVignan?
No, not at this point.
I will go to neighbors again. Mr. Pyers or Ms. Barnes, any questions for Mr. DeVignan?
For me, I don't know if Chad has a question, well, it's more of a concern. Just, you said this fence that's running along the back side of the property, is that going to remain open on the end near the wetlands?
I'm not sure what you mean by open at the end. It dead ends at the property line.
Okay, so yeah, so it'll remain like because sometimes, this might seem like a silly concern, but I live here and we see like deer coming through our yard. It's really nice, very peaceful down here. So I'm just, concerned about the effect that will have. And also these houses I know that there's already 2 small cottages there, but we're talking about putting in 2 larger homes. And I'm worried about the effect that will have on the value of our homes down here if there's overcrowding. I'm just concerned, I guess.
The fence is proposed to be split rail. And I know I get deer in my backyard. I can't stop them jumping over a small fence. So I'm not going to have a problem leaping over that.
Right, yeah, you didn't mention the height of the fence, so I wasn't sure what we were talking here.
Well, a split rail fence, typically the first rail is approximately 12 to 18 inches off the ground, and the second rail is about 36 inches off the ground max.
Yeah, and I'll add too, Ms. Barnes, that often with projects like this that are so close to a wetland line, we ask project proponents to put some sort of a barrier, whether it's split rail fence, arborvitae, or something like that, just to let property owners know that beyond that is a no activity zone because it is a wetland. And as you just heard from the engineer, that a split rail fence will allow the wildlife to pass through. And in this case, we know deer are good jumpers. I've seen it in my yard too. Thank you for your question. Mr. Pyers, anything from you? Anybody else in the neighborhood questions for Mr. DeVignan?
I had one question, or more like one statement. So where Fort Catherine, 17, near the driveway, there's trapped water. And I know we said put a process to get the runoff from the road's edge back to the wetland. You may just want to really consider the grading of the front and how it'll shed down Catherine Street and then go into the wetland. I'm definitely not against the project. I appreciate the fact that you put the nitrification system there. The farm up the street might have the same amount of burden. So that's a nice to have. But I just know that if it's the wrong grade, they're going to have a problem in their driveway. And each year we try to work to help each other out with runoff down here. So that's it.
Okay, duly noted, Chad.
That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. Anybody else on our Zoom meeting with questions or comments for Mr. DeVignan? See nothing coming up in chat, so in that case, I will entertain a motion for a positive order of conditions for A&R lot number 23 for 15 Catherine Street, with the same stipulation that the proposed subsurface runoff that will be benefiting lot 24 will tie into lot 23 and drain away that runoff. I can't see if, Dave, could you unshare so I
Oh,
can
I'm
see
sorry.
everybody?
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So do we have a motion for this project then?
Yes, make a motion.
Thank you, Rick. Do we have a second? I already hear from somebody.
I'll second.
Thank you, Heidi.
You're welcome.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Okay, going across the way, I see you on my screen. Evelyn, you've come up first. How do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Rick,
Yes.
Heidi,
Yes.
Everett,
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. DeVignan.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Anybody else?
Good night.
Anybody else that's tuned in?
Thank you, Mr. DeVignan.
Thank you.
You're
Want to
welcome.
sign off? Like I said, we won't be insulted if you leave the meeting and get on with your evening.
This is Chad. By the way, in the previous segment, you asked about recycling of solar panels. You
Yeah,
might-
Yes.
Veolia Environmental Services in Bridgewater, Massachusetts. They are a
Would you
large
spell-
Veolia. What's that?
Could you spell it out for us or type it into the chat bar so we can see it?
Definitely. I'll send it in the chat.
Fantastic, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Bridgewater's not that far, but at least it's a start. That we can locate some fathom of it. That's going to be important in years to come and close
It will be.
sooner than you think.
Seriously.
It's a little scary.
I'm gonna go back to our old business and I thank everybody from Borrego Solar Systems for letting us make that switch in the agenda. We have an NOI for Janelle and Christopher Ciano, 52 Morses Lane, file SE 001-0555. Notice of intent was filed by Janelle and Christopher Ciano for property located at 52 Morses Lane, map 17 lots 24, 24B, and 24C. The applicant proposes to construct a 5 megawatt ground mounted solar energy generating and storage system. The applicant is represented by Brandon Smith of Borrego Solar Systems Incorporated. My name is site use permit set dated December 10 of 2020. I know this is continued from the past meeting. Over to you, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Good evening. Again, my name is Brandon Smith. I'm a civil engineer with Borrego Solar, representing Janelle and Christopher Ciano for this proposed solar project off 52 Morses Lane. Just a quick update since our last meeting. A couple items. We have met with various department heads in town. No significant comments that would impact the layout change of our system. So the layout that was submitted originally and discussed at our last meeting remains the same. And as you noted, Mr. Chairman, we did receive a DEP file number and no comments from the DEP. So I don't want to necessarily take up the commission's time rehashing what I went over last week or a couple weeks ago, but I'd be happy to answer any outstanding questions or anything on the project.
I have a question. I'm extremely concerned about the stormwater impacts of this project, plus the one that we approved at our last meeting, Sin Carpa, and Deep Brook Estates all together in that same spot. Can you go over stormwater with me again, please?
Yeah, definitely. Let
You
me.
need screen sharing privileges?
Yeah, let me. I think I should be able to.
Yep.
All right. Are you able to see the kind of aerial imagery with the project overlaid over it?
Yeah.
So yeah, so we did do a stormwater analysis for this project. We took a look at the pre-existing conditions, and did a hydrologic analysis using a program called HydroCAD to understand kind of the direction of flow and the peak discharges off the site. And we kept that in mind as we designed the system. So what we've incorporated are basically there's kind of a high point central to this array. This array is sort of on a ridge, a north-south running ridge. And then this array runs to the east, or slopes to the east, I should say. So we're going to be proposing roadside swales on this road and this perimeter road as well to basically capture runoff from the array and detain it to allow basically to reduce that peak discharge running off the site. So as the site changes from wooded to a meadow type grass cover underneath the panels, we don't want to increase that discharge off the site. So we're going to be proposing a couple small ponds along this swale here. There's one here and here, and then a larger pond this is kind of the lowest point. So it gradually runs to the south. This corner is a large detention basin that has a custom outlet control device that we've kind of, using that program, modeled the discharge from that to try and match the pre-existing discharges off the site as best as possible. So I guess, Marilee, to address your concern, I think it's as long as our project and the other project are both doing that analysis and making sure that the post discharge off the site matches the pre-existing discharge off the site, it should not have a net zero impact post construction, even with both projects being constructed.
Can you point out where Deep Brook is?
Yep, Deep Brook. So it's if you can see this, but it's basically running here to the southwest of our site.
Okay. So and so none of this easterly flow is going to end up in Deep Brook?
Right. Actually, that's. I'm glad you mentioned that, because the topography of our site, actually, it is all running sort of towards this I don't know if you can see my cursor.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yep.
Yeah, this central wetland complex is where our site discharges to. So it doesn't actually go to the west. I believe, maybe further down south at some point they might converge, but within what we're looking at here, this aerial view, it actually goes to this large wetland complex that's to the south of our site.
Okay.
And then you see that, yeah, there's a hydric connection here as well. It kind of runs to this even larger wetland complex to to the east of our site.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Hannon, would you like to ask a question to Mr. Smith?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to know, on the basins, have they been perked?
Not yet. We're actually not proposing infiltration for the basins. It's just a detention basin. But we haven't done, any soil testing as of yet.
It was brought up by someone in the office that this may be, quick draining sand over there, and that we need to know whether it's going to be an infiltration or a detention basin, and that a perk test for the basins would be of some value. If you would just consider that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, anytime we propose an infiltration basin, we definitely would provide those test results. But our general rule of thumb is we try to make sure, try to make the system work without requiring infiltration, just because then, any infiltration you get is a little bit of a bonus almost. I want it to work even if that infiltration's not taking place. So this system we're proposing is just a detention basin, not infiltration.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Hannon. Merrill, further questions for Mr. Smith about drainage or about anything about this project?
Where am I? Yeah, the blue line here on the right side towards the bottom, what is that?
That's our interconnection to the electrical grid down at Morse's Road. So it's actually underground all the way until you get closer to Morse's Lane, where it rises up with several utility poles. But from here all the way to the system will be underground MV trench, following the existing dirt driveway that's already there.
So do you have to add poles to Morse's Lane?
Not, well, Morse's Lane will be upgraded by the utility as, to accommodate this project. That's separate from this project, in that, they'll have to go through the separate permitting process and that type of thing. So 3-phase will be installed on Morse's Lane, but any additional poles that are related to the project will be off of Morse's Lane on the property, on the Ciano's property.
I see. Okay.
Mr.
Thank
Smith,
you.
you noticed on your plan, it says site use permit set 52 Morse's Lane, Sandwich, Massachusetts. Does that need to be changed?
Yes,
And
that does.
sidebar.
Yeah, where obviously if anywhere that says Sandwich would need to be changed. On the set I have, it looks correct. But is the copy that you have, does that say Sandwich?
Well, what's on the screen now does, but I guess Merrill would need to answer that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, this was, yes, I'm sorry. This was kind of just a graphic I printed for the meeting, and I must have had it wrong, but I actually didn't submit this color site plan with the application. The
Okay.
plans that
Righto.
were these, which should have the correct information.
And all the pink that's around, is that all erosion control? Is that what that is, or is that property line?
On this view,
Yeah, all those pink rectangles on the color screen.
Yeah, that represents the property line. So on this, the magenta pink is property line. The red it represents the system fence. The blue is obviously the solar array. Light blue rectangles are the energy storage units. And then, this kind of lighter blue.
Wetland. Yeah.
But as for erosion controls, they're not shown on this plan, but we do have them shown on our actual plan set. We're proposing to use a combination of silt fence and wood strand berms, which are basically just the grindings from the stumps of the trees that are on site, and use that material to create sort of like a silt sock type erosion control measure where it allows water to pass but filters any sediment.
Okay. Thank you. We have others with questions. I can't see everybody, so if I'm not calling on you, type your name into the chat bar or shout out.
I got a question. So in between the two solar arrays, is the fence connecting between the two? And like, there's almost like a peninsula in between the two arrays. Is the fence going to connect between the two and block that off? Or is that going to be open and then the land in between is open for wildlife or whatever?
Yeah, good question, because it is a little bit of an odd shape just because that central wetland complex. So I guess the fence will be continuous, if that makes sense. It will go
break. Will it break right at the end, like the south? What would that be, like the south? I don't know, northwest corner, I guess, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, it won't. I guess to answer that directly, it won't break. So it will be continuous. Like in this small section, we tried to place that. There's a wetland to the north here, off-site.
Right, not to the north. I'm talking to the south. So on the south, at that, you're right there where your cursor is.
Gotcha. Okay. Yes, this will be open. There will be no fence going across here. We are maintaining a minimum 50-foot setback from this wetland for any proposed fence or clearing or anything like that. So this will be untouched. Basically, this central corridor will be untouched all the way up to the.
So any vegetation / trees, anything in there will not be touched.
Correct.
Okay.
So it'll be like I mentioned, a little bit odd for a solar array where you're going to have this kind of stand of trees, this long stand of trees in the middle of these two arrays, but we just want to make sure we maintain those setbacks from the wetland system that was delineated.
Okay, that's all I got.
Thank you.
You mentioned that stand of trees in between. Does that mean there might be some periodic cutting just to allow maximum access of sunlight?
No, we've run the models for the shading of the system, and there are areas where we made as best use of that area that typically would be shade management, with the access road and the energy storage units. So with kind of thinking through the layout as best we could and putting it together as smart as we could think, we won't need to impact that area for any reason, shading management or construction at all. So I guess the short answer would be within that 50-foot setback, we're not proposing anything cutting or shade management or trimming.
Okay, Erica Maynard has a question. You may ask.
Hi, how you guys doing?
Good, thank you.
We're well.
Good.
Good. So we bought a property on 83 Lake Street last November, and our neighbors got a notice in the mail about this property, and I'm kind of wondering how it would impact us if it does in any way, because I don't have a feeling that it does. I just want to be sure. that
No.
it wouldn't affect our property in any way.
Much. Did you say Lake Street?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's a little
this-
far.
Oh,
It is. This is not even close. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not really
But-
sure why they got a notice. I just wanted to be crystal clear that I kind of answered my own question. I just had to ask the obvious.
I'm glad you asked. And I wonder if your neighbors own something else in this general area along with Lake Street. But yeah, this is far enough away that this won't have any impact on you at all.
Right.
Okay, well, I enjoyed the meeting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Is anybody else with questions for Mr. Smith or anybody else from Borrego Solar? All right. Well, with that being said, I'll entertain a motion for a positive order of conditions for 52 Morse's Lane. And Mr. Smith, could you unshare so I can have gallery view again? Thank you.
I'll make
Bob,
a
I'd like to
motion.
make that motion.
I think that was Everett who made that motion. Do we have a second?
Yeah.
I think that was Evelyn. Was that you, Evelyn, making a second?
No, no, that wasn't me.
I'll
Was that you,
second.
Heidi?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion from Everett, second from Heidi. Going the way you show on my screen. Heidi, how do you vote?
Yes.
Everett?
Yes.
I know it's a formality, but I do have to ask. Richard?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Evelyn?
Same, yes.
So that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the time tonight.
Thank you.
Again, thank you for the switch in the agenda.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay. Other new business. On to, we have an NOI for PJ Keating Company, 72 South Main Street, SE 001. Looks like there's not a file number. If that's come in since the agenda was sent out, please let me know. A notice of intent was filed by PJ Keating Company for property located at 72 South Main Street, map 15, lots 15 through 18. The applicant proposes to grade the eastern slopes of the existing silt piles located at the rear of the PJ Keating quarry property. Applicant is represented by Douglas Vigneault of PJ Keating Company. Plan name is Site Plan of Land at 72 South Main Street in Acushnet, Mass, dated December 21, 2020. Mr. Vigneault, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening. Good evening, members of the commission. Just by way of introductions and a few of the folks on the phone that you may not be familiar with, I have James Tatro of Thompson and Liston. They'll be available for any questions that you might have. He's a certified professional in erosion and sedimentation control. I also have Charles Karen of Karen Environmental. He's our wetlands expert with 30 years of experience. We also have Luke Legier, counsel for PJK, who you are familiar with. Also have Rob Robinson, who is from PJK. He's the vice president of aggregates, which some of you know as well. And finally, Mike Warner, newly named site manager at our PJK Acushnet quarry facility. If you have any questions for those folks or would like to hear anything about their credentials, then certainly feel free to ask through the chairman of the board, and I appreciate it. So, yes, we did file an NOI. It's part of a stipulation procedure that we're going through with the town, but we don't need to get into depth on that per se. All of you, or many of you, were out to the site some time ago, several months ago, and walked the site under discussion this evening. If you care to, I can pull up that particular map and show you where we're talking about. But if you are familiar with it, then I need to do that. That's up to you.
Mr.
Mr.
I
Chairman.
think for purposes of the meeting, for the record, if we could have that shown, that would help.
Okay.
As long as we can get you screen sharing privileges.
Can we see that?
Make sure we get, not yet. Hopefully, somebody from our town will give you screen sharing privileges.
Just let me know.
Not seeing it yet.
Share screen. No, I'm just getting what appears to be other people's. Let's see. I apologize for that. Let me try that again. Nope. Sorry about this. Let me try that again. Good for you folks.
There we go.
There it is.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you actually see the quarry now? Now?
It looks like it's loading. I can't, there it is.
Yep.
Okay, super. Sorry about that.
Super. All right. Thank you.
So if you recall, on the site visit back some time ago, we parked in this area here. We walked down into here and we walked around the corner, and this was about the extent of the site visit walk. The area under contemplation is, which we can show in a moment as well, is that that there are bordering vegetated wetlands along this line here, and that this silt pond is within 100 feet of the delineated wetland line. We have a wetland line from 2009 that never went through the official ORAD process, but we did redelineate that line in just recently in 2020. And the plans that we submitted to the commission show both of those lines. The lines themselves are pretty close to what was out there in 2009. If anything, the wetland has encroached closer to the bottom of the silt piles, but none of which show the wetland line, encroaching where the silt piles are. So just want to show you that. Let's see if I can pull this one up as well. Can you see this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So what we propose to do is, in order to better secure the banking out there, and to make sure that there's no further encroachment within the buffer zone, we plan to stabilize the silt pile at the rear of the property, as we indicated. That is being done in compliance or under the suggestion of Thompson Liston, our erosion control specialists, and that will include the construction sequences on the plans that have been provided, but I'll just reiterate those now. Installation of the erosion control barrier at the foot of the toe of the slope, or further in 15 feet The barrier shall consist of staked silt fence backed by staked straw bales. Utilizing an excavator with a long reach arm, we will remove material and regrade the slope to a 2-to-1 grade, keeping a raised dike at least 2 feet high at the top of the slope here. And we will then grade this at 3-to-1 so that any water that does hit the top of the bank will go back into what was previously a siltation basin, no longer under use. Once the slope has been regraded to a 2-to-1 slope with a 20-foot wide top of dike and a 3-to-1 or flatter slope on the inside of the cell, we will be putting on a spray bionic soil media, which James Tatro from Thompson Liston can speak to better than I. And after the passage of at least 2 dry days, we will then hydroseed the same slopes with Flextera high performance flexible growth medium. That is all after the fact that we put in the straw bale fence and silt fence. So the intent is to, we're required, as I indicated briefly, under a stipulation in agreement with the town and the courts, to file a notice of intent to curtail any potential erosion of this slope, and that's our intent. The notice of intent is relatively straightforward. All the work is within the buffer zone. It's a preservation project in accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act. There is some work within the buffer zone, not unlike the previous notices of intent we've heard tonight, where most of the projects are located within buffer zone. So, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have to really say concerning it. It's pretty straightforward with regards to what we plan to do to stabilize the slope. And we welcome questions and comments. Thank you.
Okay. To clarify, do you have a file number yet?
No, we don't. No, Mr. Chairman, I don't know why. It might have been the short turnaround between the time of the filing on December 30th. Zero has received the notice of intent as evidenced by the green card that we received back. But I'm not quite sure why a number has not yet been issued. We have not received, obviously, given that, we haven't received any comments from DEP. Work is not contemplated within the natural heritage area, as you can see, is demarcated on the plan as well.
Marilee, questions, comments from you?
Did you find when you delineated the property that there is silt in the wetland? Because it looked to us like it went down pretty deep.
Well, to date, we did do the wetlands delineation. The surveyor did not pick up any silt infiltration into or across into wetlands. So the short answer is we don't have that information this evening.
Okay. So if there is silt in the wetland, will you remove it? That's the question.
Yeah, I mean, if that's something that the commission desires us to do, then we can certainly look at the expanse of if and any siltation that might have migrated over the wetlands line. So yes, that is something that we can take a look at for sure.
Okay. And tell me again, what was the stuff you're going to put on the slope?
Sure. It's different than the materials that I just want to make that clear, the materials that we put on the other areas of the silt. I'm sure that you've been out there as well, Agent Kelly. There has been some erosion that occurred after the fact of hydroseeding in those other areas. The material that we use there was referred to as, or is referred to as a silk attract. It's a little bit different than what we propose to do here with putting down a actual organic layer first, and then another layer of hydroseeding on top of that, with the hopes that that hydroseeding will perform somewhat better than some of the erosion that we got on the opposite side. And I will, if with the chairman's permission, I would like to ask James Tatro to talk about what he has proposed with regards to the hydroseeding and the difference of what occurred on the other side.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I'm James Tatro from Thompson Liston Associates. I'm a PE and a CPESC. And we were asked by folks at PJ Keating to draw up a plan for stabilization of this slope at a 2-to-1 grade, so that it could be, so that its long-term stability would be improved. And what we're proposing on this site to use for the stabilization is first, again, after the regrading to a 2-to-1 slope, that the probiotics or organic media be sprayed first to give the second spraying something to which to use, to which to attach, because the silt material itself just isn't a good growth medium. It's just simply not. And after the first, the proganics biotic media is sprayed, we'd want to have 2 days of dry, so before spraying the Flexterra HP FGM, so that there's not sort of a cumulative factor of moisture causing some runoff of what's sprayed. And after the 2 days of dry, we'd have Flexterra high performance flexible growth medium sprayed on. It's really, Mr. Chairman, an alternative spraying this slope to putting down erosion control matting, and where you have, unless you can be sure that you're going to have an extremely good smooth surface, this is a better, I think is a better choice. It's rated actually for use on a 1-to-1 slope. You can use this, the Flexterra HP FGM on a 1-to-1 slope. Again, we'd be proposing it here on a 2-to-1 slope. The primary difference that Flexterra calls for is just the amount used per acre in coverage. There's I believe it's, I think it's 3,000 pounds per acre on a 3-to-1 slope and 4,500 on a 1-to-1 slope, which is what we'd be applying here, even though, again, it's a 2-to-1. And this would give vegetation a chance to start on the slope, again, with the 2-to-1 grade. And as important almost as the stabilization of the slope and getting vegetation growing on it is the control of runoff from above. So we made a point of showing on this, on the plan, you can see on the sheet in front of you, that the top of dike is quite wide, and it's a 3-to-1 slope on the inside to try and make sure that that is stable. And if you do get water in there, that you don't have, you're not going to be worried that you're going to have an unstable dike itself at the top of this. And the process here will have to include, if the cell becomes full or near even half full or more, that you're going to have a nice controlled pump out of that vegetation, and that captured runoff, and not allow a situation to develop where runoff can flow over the top of this. That's in a fill slope like this. where you don't have really a worry about groundwater breakout causing instability. Your biggest worry is flow of runoff getting over the top. And in this case, with such a long slope, you do have to worry that you have to especially be careful to do the job right, such that rainfall at the top doesn't simply cause some erosion just in the course of flowing down the slope. But the biggest thing here is to control the water, not let it come over the top of this slope. And again, I think we have a good program for the vegetation of the slope in getting some organic media on there first, and then applying this, the Flextera, which can be used even on a 1-to-1 slope, on this 2-to-1 slope. I think it's a pretty good program. I think it's what's appropriate in this situation. And it is a somewhat extreme situation. It's a slope that starts up around elevation 102 and goes down to 60 or 58. So it's about a 44 foot height. But we have dealt with similar slopes in other circumstances. In some instances where we've used this media and others, different things applied. But there is a reasonable way to do this, and a way to do this that everyone can feel comfortable that this is a good solution. I think this is a good solution for this circumstance.
The one concern I always have is this seed mix you're putting on, layer number 2. How much of this is native species?
Ooh, I don't have the seed. They actually can put together almost any seed mix that you want. The primary things that won't vary are the mulch and the other things in the solution, but they can actually vary the seed mix almost as much as you want. You can have a seed mix, again, with typical on slopes. They always talk about fescue and other grasses, but I haven't actually spoken to the hydro cedar about what the mix specifically would be.
Well, we certainly want whatever's on there to grab on and prevent any kind of erosion from taking place, but we could maximize the percentage of U.S. species as opposed to species from wherever. It's certainly better for local wildlife typically.
That's a good point. And actually, I had a note somewhere to myself to talk with the wetland scientist on this job to ask if he had any specific suggestions based on the nature of the wetland there. I have to confess, my knowledge of plants is pretty limited, and ask him if he had any specific suggestions for what might be included in this.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else with questions on Mr. Tetreault?
No.
No. Yes, Mr. Vigneault, we can send this back to you then if you like.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The plan as you see it before you, again, you were out there. We do want to stabilize that as much as possible. We haven't recognized any significant or additional erosion out there. You can see it even in the middle of the picture here, where we did have a problem right here, as you can see with the cursor. That once we get it back to a 2-to-1 slope, a lot of material is going to be pushed back over beyond the dike. The dike has significant storage area within it, certainly can handle any rainfall that comes onto it. The dike is no longer used in any processes, and it is, it has quite a bit of room within it, particularly once we berm up the edges as well. That will only give us more storage area, and the storage area will only be reflective of any rainfall falling on top of it itself. But it's generally a relatively small area with regards to direct capture of rainfall, and we'll make make every effort so that obviously none of that escapes in an easterly direction. So, other than that, Mr. Chairman, I don't have additional. I feel as though we have good professionals on board and take their recommendations. We are more than happy to have a condition of monitoring and coming back to the commission on how well things work. And if indeed we run into any issues following this, then we would certainly ameliorate those and go forward from there. Now, obviously the other thing is that we don't want to be disturbing the slope until such time as that we will be able to have the appropriate weather to hydroseed shortly after we get the slope of the 2-to-1. So it'll probably be this spring before we conquer this. And so that would be, hopefully the expectation of the commission as well.
Will you be adding to this after it's hydroseeded?
Ms. Kelly, I'm not particularly sure what that means. We are abandoning this in totality once we get it all set and stabilized. There's no additional work proposed up here at this time. There's no more silt going into these piles, and there won't be in the future.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Mr. Vigneault, do you know if anybody else that you've invited to be on this call would like to speak or add any level of detail?
Not unless you have specific questions. We did supply the commission with the most updated wetlands delineation report, which provides the 50% or more of plants that are there in certain areas. Mr. Karen could speak to that if that's desired. He did do the delineation in 2009. So that's why we brought him on board again to do it, because his familiarity with it and his expertise in the field. But not unless someone has specific questions. No, I don't think that anyone. We had our folks here to answer any questions that might come up that either myself or other than myself and James were incapable of answering.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Open it up to members of the commission. Anybody with questions for Mr. Vigneault or anybody else here on behalf of PJ Keating?
No.
All right, not seeing any.
Yeah.
I know we don't have a fight.
No.
Yeah.
Someone ask?
Real quick, Mr. Vigneault, is any of the material leaving the site in order to make the 2-to-1 slope, or is it just going to be compiled inside of the existing silt pond, move from the east side up into the existing silt pond, and also to make like a berm, like you said, all the materials?
Yeah, the berm you can see here is better defined and a little easier to see than some of the grading that James has done here. No, none of the silt will be leaving our property. We will be finding other areas outside of wetland buffer zones, etc., in order to make this happen. There are additional spaces on the west-hand side of the slope that basically the quarries comes back over in this area beyond the transmission lines. So we're still way beyond, like, even where the transmission lines are back here. So we could move that material in this area right now, but we're not planning on trucking it, certainly not trucking it off-site or anything like that. But in the spaces that we have, that's where we'll be placing it. And I should say, along with that, we will regrade any areas at a 2-to-1 slope. We won't, just like we did on the opposite side. And we're more than happy to go in and work on some of the areas that have shown some erosion, despite the fact that they're not under jurisdictional issues with regards to the Wetlands Protection Act or anything else for that matter. But we want to shore up the areas as well, just to prevent additional sedimentation that quite honestly can be problematic to our machinery if we pass through it. We don't want it either. So we will continue to do all stabilization in areas necessary. And Mr. Tatro and Thompson Liston is advising us in those regards as well.
Right. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it. You guys seem to be making a conscious effort, you know.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ryan. So one last pass through those in attendance. Questions or comments from Mr. Vino or anybody else from PJ Keating?
No.
Okay. Well, we'll have to continue this to the next meeting until we have a file number. So I'll entertain a motion to continue.
I make a motion to continue.
Thank you, Rick. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Everett. I'll see, I want to go down in order that I see you on my screen. Rick, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ryan?
Yes.
Everett?
Yes.
Heidi?
Yes.
Evelyn?
Yes.
Yeah, that's unanimous. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody from PJ Keating and Associated Experts for joining us.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Given
If
that
you
you're,
could
Thank you for your
screen share
time.
so I can see my folks again.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yes, please.
This is Doug. So the continuance of the hearing will be merely to codify the fact that you have a DEP filing number?
Yeah, we don't make a vote on these things until we have a file number.
Okay, but other than that, this has been considered, we will be issued a order of conditions? Is that true?
I've been notified that the Board of Health will have questions once we have a file number. Unless you want to tackle those now.
You've been notified that the Board of Health has questions once we get a file number? Is that what we said? Is that what I heard?
Yes. Board of Health will like to comment after DEP issues the file number and comments. So I guess they want to respond to whatever comes through from DEP.
Okay.
So that will be in response to whatever comes from DEP.
Fair enough.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Vigno, could you end your screen share just so I can have gallery view?
Oh, yes, certainly.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you all.
Sorry to interrupt. Just really quickly, this is Alex Whiteside, Town Council.
Yes.
Technically, the applicant needs to agree to the continuance here. So I think just for the record, it would make sense to make sure that on the record, PJK is saying they are willing to agree to the continuance.
Okay.
Yes, I believe I already said that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for clarifying. So that's the last item in the hearing part of things. So thank you all from PJ Keating for part of the meeting.
Thank you for your time.
Next, we have discussion items, wetlands bylaw. Our chair for this subcommittee is not present, so I'm going to pass on that unless someone else has a burning comment or question they need to bring up. I didn't think so. Hunting on conservation land. I know we're awaiting feedback from town council, town administrator, and anybody else that wants to comment. Plus, we're past hunting season now anyway, but we can keep on nudging people to get this dealt with and fully in writing and then, you know, on the town website, at least on the conservation page, so we can be done with it.
So has there been any feedback from any of those entities?
Not yet.
Early, yep, okay.
I'll push it a little bit, see if I can get some feedback.
Okay. If you need a hand pushing, I'm persistent.
Okay.
Marilee, you go, girl.
I'm just asking questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hannon. Good night, too. Let's see. So that's all on discussion. Do we have any updates from our agent?
Not really. There's a lot of houses going up. The lots on Labonte Street off of Pembroke there have to what's the word?
Relocate?
Reposition, yeah, relocate the replication area because I think they hit ledge. But otherwise, a lot of houses going up, not a lot of solar fields going up yet.
Good.
Yeah.
I second that.
Does anybody else have business for the commission?
Nope.
I have a question for Marilee.
Go ahead.
Did you have a chance to look at that property on Main Street that I pointed out to you the other day?
Oh, no, I haven't been there. I'll go by there tomorrow.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I forgot all about it.
I've been by there a couple times since, and it looks like a new foundation underneath the walls. So I think it's a new construction.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Thanks, Everett. Anybody else with business for the commission?
Nope.
I'll tell you, our next meeting will be happening on Tuesday, January 26th via Zoom at 6 p.m. In other words, 2 weeks from now, and we certainly know that we'll have PJ Keating on the agenda as far as the continuance. And Marilee, any sense of anything else coming up?
No, I don't think anything else has come in yet. There is a project coming in for Riverview Park, a stormwater project, but I don't know when they'll have that to us.
Okay. Well, seeing no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Everett, do we have it? Ryan, do you want to make that second?
Make that second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all very much. Our meeting adjourned at 1 minute past.